Coming up, the year we're traveling back to today was a year of seismic pop culture shifts. Jimmy Carter was in the Oval Office, Star Wars took over theaters, and Saturday Night Fever lit up the dance floor. New York City went dark in a massive blackout, but the music scene, that was burning bright. One of the biggest rock songs of the year came from the 1800s. Another came when a sleazy radio promoter's dirty innuendo pissed off a legendary singer and caused her to write one of the greatest rock songs ever in mere minutes. Then there was another song that was released on an album 7 years earlier, but a live version of the song hit the top of the charts. And another one came from one of the greatest soap operas in music history, still going on. It made today's year a revelation. Can you guess the year? Well, we're going to count down the top 10 songs with special guests coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time, especially today. Got a good one for you. You know, if you remember watching Halley's Comet back in '86, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the white button and click the bell so you always know when our stuff comes out. Also, make sure to become an exclusive member at our website, professorofrock.com. We have some exclusive content there. You're going to want to see it. So did you guess the year of our countdown today? We're going to jump in the time machine and we're going to head back to a year the disco was, ruling the charts, but rock and roll was still making a big, big statement. From Boston and Heart and Foreigner, we got a great countdown for you today. The year, 1977. A lot of great memories and powerful performances on our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1977, and we got some special guests for you as well. We begin with a track that was reimagined from a sing-along that was more than 100 years old, actually 200 years old, by the time it became a worldwide sensation. At number 10, I got the slammin' one-hit wonder, Black Betty by Ram Jam.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam.
Black Betty is historically linked to blues singer Leadbelly. Born Huddle William Ledbetter, at 60 years old when his version was recorded, he couldn't lay claim to writing Black Betty.
Oh, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, oh, Black Betty, bam-a-lam.
Black Betty had likely echoed under the blistering sun for generations, a raw and rhythmic work song passed down really since the first enslaved people arrived on American soil. Like I said, the song's over 200 years old. But whether Betty referred to a bottle of whiskey, a treacherous woman, a police car, or the dreaded bullwhip that tore into the backs of laborers, one thing was certain. A guy named James Baker, one of the first versions, he understood its meaning in his bones. A man who called himself the roughest to ever walk the streets of Dallas. Baker didn't just sing Black Betty, he unleashed it. His voice carried the weight of lived experience, an eerie, haunted moan that even Leadbelly, with his legendary 1939 recording for Musicraft Records, struggled to match.
Oh, Lord, Black Betty. Oh, Lordy, Black Betty.
In 1934, nearly a year after James Ironhead Baker delivered the first known recorded performance of Black Betty, journalist John Lomax sat down with him for an interview. The conversation found its way into an article for Music Quarterly where Lomax noted that Black Betty was a common nickname for the bullwhip. Of course, a symbol of suffering etched into the song's very core. Black Betty goes back even further than Ironhead Baker, though. Its roots go back to the 1800s, where it was a work song sung by inmates in the chain gangs of the South. But when it came to popularizing Black Betty in modern times, it was guitar singer Bill Bartlett that had the vision and the execution to make it happen, especially as a rock song.
Bam-a-lam, the damn thing gone blind. Bam-a-lam, I said, oh, Black Betty, bam-a-lam.
Bill Bartlett had already made his mark with the Lemon Pipers before branching out to form his own band, a band called Starstruck. It was with Starstruck that he took Leadbelly's brief 59-second rendition of Black Betty, and then he transformed it into something new, arranging, recording, and releasing it on the group's independent Truck Star label. The song quickly caught fire, became a regional hit. Then word of Black Betty's growing buzz reached New York City producers Jerry Kazanets and Jeffrey Kotz, who saw its potential, and they built a new band around Bartlett, naming it Ram Jam, and re-released the track on a national scale. But despite the new band name, the version of Black Betty that hit the charts was still the one that Bartlett had recorded with Starstruck, just heavily edited and restructured to give it, a fresh punch. Bill played the tasty, frenetic guitar licks on Black Betty, and he performed the lead vocal. And when asked about how he interpreted the controversial lyrics of Black Betty, Bill put it in perspective. He said, and I quote, "My version is about Betty Page." Betty, of course, the pinup girl queen from the 50s and the sole inspiration for the last two verses that Bill changed from the original. Actually, Bill altered the end of the song with "She's so rock steady and she's always ready."
No, that's no lie. Bam-a-lam, she's so rock steady. Bam-a-lam, and she's always ready.
Now, despite Black Betty being credited to Leadbelly, its release wasn't without social contention. The NAACP and the Congress of Racial Equality called for a boycott, objecting to the lyrics of the song. But the resistance was short-lived. Actually surged to number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100, hit number 3 in Australia, and climbed to number 7 in the UK. Across Europe, it was even bigger, ranking as the 8th most popular single on the continent. It's still massive, even bigger today. Our countdown of the top 10 songs of 77 continues with a song that started off right for a mix of America and the UK, a band they call Foreigner. It feels like the first time at number 9. Mick Jones wasn't just writing a song here. He was capturing a turning point in his life, put together Foreigner, and found lead singer Mick Jones. Here's Lou Gramm about the song, how they combined forces to record it.
They had recorded Feels Like the First Time already, and a couple of other songs. And so they played the song, they played the instrumental version for me while I was in the control room. And Mick was singing in my ear the melody, and he had the words all written out. We got to the point where I went out into the studio and began singing, and it took a few times to get comfortable with a new song you had never done before. But pretty soon I was in the swing of things, and I was cutting loose a little bit, Yeah. And they were very pleased with that.
Though the song stalled at number 39 in the UK, it hit number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and put them on the map. The song that we have at number 8 is truly one of the most beautiful ballads of the 70s by the biggest group of the decade. Well, it's arguable, but I'm talking about How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees.
Need to show how deep is your love, is your love.
How Deep Is Your Love, that was actually intended to be for Yvonne Elliman, whom the brothers Gibb greatly admired. They just loved her voice. It was a phone call from the Bee Gees manager, Robert Stigwood, that got the ball rolling for Barry, Robin, and Morris to write How Deep Is Your Love. Robert picked up the phone and called Barry Gibb with a request. He needed a song or songs for a movie that he was working on. And without hesitation, the Bee Gees got to work delivering 5 tracks that would soon become the heartbeat of Saturday Night Fever. Among them was a song that would go on to define an era, How Deep Is Your Love. Barry, Robin, and Morris, they crafted the song's melody and lyrics, but its structure, that took shape with the help of their trusted keyboardist, a guy named Blue Weaver. Barry and Blue sat together, piecing together the chords and the flow of the song, layering in emotion with every single note. Years later, co-producer Albie Galutin would acknowledge just how vital Weaver's contributions were to the song. He said that was one song where Blue had a tremendous amount of input. There was so much of his personality in it. When you play piano, it's almost like writing the song, and Blue had a lot of influence on the piano structure of that particular track. End of quote. Blue Weaver vividly recalled the magic of that session, painting a scene straight out of a dream. He said, "We went into a room at the chateau, one where Chopin himself had once stayed. Every time I looked at the piano, I imagined him playing there. I sat down thinking of his prelude in E-flat, and it clicked. Barry could sing in E-flat. Then, as if on cue, a beam of sunlight streamed through the stained glass window, and Barry's voice filled the room. I know your eyes in the morning sun."
I know your eyes in the morning sun.
The heavenly vocals on How Deep Is Your Love were mostly Barry, but in the chorus, it was the voices of Barry and Robin. It wasn't a double track. It was actually the two of them harmonizing as only the Bee Gees could.
In a world of fools, breaking us down.
The brothers thought Yvonne Elliman, whom they wrote "If I Can't Have You," she would be perfect to sing "How Deep Is Your Love." But Robert Stigwood, he heard the song and he was adamant. This song had to be for the Bee Gees. He said, "You got to do it yourselves. You shouldn't give it to anybody else. This is your song." When "How Deep Is Your Love" climbed to number 3 on the UK charts, Barry Gibb could hardly believe it. In an era dominated by punk and new wave, a lush romantic ballad like theirs seemed to be the underdog. He said, "You have no idea what a thrill it is to have a top 5 single in England with all that was going on. With new wave and punk, rock, all of that. I would have thought something like How Deep Is Your Love, I wouldn't have had a chance, but we always kept going forward, getting stronger every day." The song's success stretched far beyond the UK. It soared to number 1 in 7 countries, including France, Brazil, Argentina, Canada, and here in the US. Of course, here in the US, it ruled the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks. At number 7 on our top 10 here, I've got one of my favorite voices, the voice of America, really. I guess Springsteen fans and Tom Petty fans could argue it. But at number 7, I've got Night Moves by the great Bob Seger.
Working on a night move.
Bob knew exactly what he was doing when he chose Night Moves as the title of his song. The phrase had layers, just like the memories it was built on. Sure, it could mean stealing a moment with a girl in the backseat of a car, but for Bob Seger, it went deeper than that. Back in Ann Arbor, Michigan, he and his buddies had their own kind of nightlife. They'd head out to the fields, they'd park their cars in a circle, and they'd crank up the radio with headlights cutting through the darkness. They'd dance under the stars, lost in the music, lost in that moment. Now, they called these gatherings grassers, and for them, those were the night moves. Of course, it has double entendre, double meaning here.
Page driving news. Working on a night move.
Now, the song is primarily about a young couple losing their virginity in the backseat of a Chevy. That much is clear. Bob Seger says the song was definitely autobiographical. He took some liberties, though, as their tryst was after high school. The girl he was with had a boyfriend away in the military, and when he came back, she married him, and that broke Bob Seger's heart. Seger says the song represents the freedom and the possibility of the high school years.
We were just young and restless and bored.
Seger was inspired by the movie American Graffiti, which was released in 1973, but it was set in 1962. He said, "I came out of the theater thinking, hey, I have a story to tell too. Nobody's ever told about how it was to grow up in my neck of the woods."
Scare me. Hey, I've been looking all over for you, man. Didn't nobody tell you I was looking for you?
So right after, he went to get a burger at a drive-thru, and he wrote the song on the receipt. That's awesome. I love these stories. Now, the haunting bridge in Night Moves, one of the best bridges ever, where Bob's voice stands alone as he sings, "I woke last night to the sound of thunder." That wasn't planned. It was just pure spontaneity. In the studio, he and producer Jack Richardson came up with the idea on the fly, creating a quiet, reflective moment that would become one of the song's most unforgettable highlights.
I woke last night to the sound of thunder.
And a song that really kind of took it into the future. Night Moves was a game changer for Seger. Started as a B-side, but it ended up catapulting him from a regional favorite to a nationwide sensation. Back home in Michigan, he'd been a star since 1969, thanks to Ramblin' Gamble Man, which actually climbed to number 17 on the Hot 100. But after that, he didn't have any success. He actually was an uphill battle. He had 17 straight singles that bombed until Night Moves finally put him on the map for good. And then Bob Seger became a household name. Night Moves got decent traction in Australia as well at number 25, New Zealand at number 39, but it really resonated here in North America, climbing to number 5 in Canada and number 4 here in the Billboard Hot 100.
Working and practicing all of the night moves.
At number 6, we have the greatest soap opera in music history, maybe the greatest soap opera ever in pop culture history. I Got Dreams by Fleetwood Mac.
Have you any dreams you'd like to sell?
Thunder only happens when it's raining. Speaking of thunder only happens when it's raining. Such an eternally perfect lyric written by Stevie Nicks as the chorus of Dreams on Fleetwood Mac's gigantically successful album Rumors. The Rumors recording sessions were a storm of heartbreak and excess. Every member of the Mac was caught in a tangled web of breakups. I mean, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, they were at war. John and Christine McVie, they'd split. Mick Fleetwood's marriage to Jenny Boyd, that was crumbling. Tensions ran high and the band was drowning in a sea of drugs and emotions. Despite the chaos, though, they kept working.
They would come and they would go.
Though much of the songwriting happened in isolation, Stevie Nicks, for example, found inspiration in the studio next door where Sly Stone was actually recording. The space was something out of a rock and roll fever dream. Red velvet draped across the walls, a massive semicircular bed at the center. It was a perfect setting for Stevie to craft a song about tangled love and emotional wreckage. Something she knew all too well.
When the rain washes you clean, you'll know.
Stevie Nicks still remembers the night that Dreams was born. So it was late, emotions were raw, and the air was thick with the weight of everything that had really unraveled between her and Lindsey Buckingham. She just sat alone, just her voice and a piano, pouring her heartbreak into this song.
Again, you say you want your freedom.
Then when she finished, she walked into the studio and handed Lindsey a cassette with the rough take on it. Despite the anger simmering between them, he pressed play and he listened to it. Stevie's lyric players only love you when they're playing. And that was, of course, a pointed jab at Lindsey Buckingham. And she wasn't exactly thrilled when he showed up with Go Your Own Way. The song was unmistakably about her, and not in a flattering way, especially the lyric packing up, shacking up, making reference to her cheating on him with multiple men, something that Stevie denied to the core. So reflecting on it years later, she told Q Magazine in 2009, and I quote, "It was the fairy and the gnome. I was trying to be all philosophical. He was just mad." As the song filled the room, something shifted though. When it ended, he looked up at her and he smiled. A rare moment of warmth in the middle of their storm. So what was going on between us was sad. We were couples who just couldn't make it through. That's what Stevie said. But as musicians, we still respected each other and we got some brilliant songs out of it. Indeed, they did. Their breakup, that was playing out in real time, not just in private, but through the very songs they were recording. And they had to sing it together every single night. She had to sing Packing Up, Shacking Up. One of the most emotionally charged albums in rock history, Rumors, was #1 on the Billboard album chart for 31 non-consecutive weeks. Dreams was another of those songs that wasn't as big in the UK, peaked at number 24 amazingly, but was enormously popular in Canada and America. It was the Mac's only #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100, if you can believe that. Coming up next on our countdown to the top 10 songs at 77, we're halfway through. It's a track dedicated to a vicious, predatory man in the music business that Ann Wilson called Barracuda. Heart's Dangerous Rocker comes in at #5. I spoke with Ann Wilson about Barracuda, and you could still feel the wrath that she had. You know, the fuel that helped her to write this. She pulled no punches. Here's what she said.
We just had done our set, and so, as with most opening bands on the way up, after your set, your dressing room is just full of people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Back then they called them rack jobbers. And, you know, guys whose job it was to glad hand and meet you.
Exactly,
and you say hi to them so that they have the will to go out, the instinct, and then they're behind you. So I was talking to this one guy, and he said to me, "So how's your love life going? How's your lover?" And I thought he was referring to my man, my boyfriend. And I said, "Oh, he's fine. Oh, everything's great, you know." No. You and your sister. You know what I'm talking about. You and your sister.
Oh, geez.
You know, and by today's standards, that's not such a shocking, insulting thing. You know, incestuous lesbianism. But for back then, it made me livid because I love my sister. Mm-hmm. And We were purists, and we were almost missionary in our artistry zeal. You know, we wanted to go out there and say our words and be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Not just seen as a couple of lesbian sisters, you know, like fun to watch.
Yeah.
And so that pissed me off. I was honestly made really angry by that. So I went back to the hotel and wrote the words to Barracuda. And it was the first moment, too, I think I realized what kind of business we were in.
Barracuda by Ann and Nancy Wilson. That was a huge hit. The single struck number 4 in the Netherlands, number 2 in Canada, and number 1 in South Africa. In the U.S., the single reached number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. It should have been a number 1 hit, let's be honest. Coming in at number 4, it's the band that saved rock and roll from disco. They made this sucker in their basement. Well, Tom Scholz did, and he found the perfect voice in a guy named Brad Delp. At number 4, I've got Long Time by Boston.
It's been such a long time.
Before Boston's debut album sent shockwaves through the music world, Tom Scholz was just a student at MIT, as we've talked about. He had a dream and a sound in his head. That sound took shape in the form of Foreplay, a dramatic instrumental piece that would eventually lead into Long Time. By 1971, Scholz was working on turning that vision into a reality. He and drummer Jim Mazdia recorded Foreplay in Mazdia's basement studio, laying down the foundation of what would become Boston's signature sound. Then over the next few years, the two continued refining demos, with Jim driving the thunderous rhythms while Scholz meticulously crafted the layers of guitar and organ. And then in 1976, after years of persistence, Scholz finally landed a record deal. But with that success came change. Mazdia was out, and Sib Hashian, he stepped in behind the drum kit. The album that followed would become one of the most iconic debuts in rock history. But it all started with Foreplay, born in a basement, fueled by a relentless pursuit of perfection. In the early days, a long time before it became a rock radio staple, Tom Scholz handled everything. I mean, even the vocals. Deep in his basement, while crafting what would become Boston's legendary demo album, he sang every part himself. But then he invited his friend, a guy named Brad Delp, to take a shot at it. There was no question. Brad's soaring, effortless voice was on another level. A level even better than the best of the best. By the time the 1976 studio version was recorded, Tom's vocals were gone, and of course Brad's voice was the only one that remained.
Well, I'm taking my time. I'm just moving on.
Tom Scholz, however, was still the mastermind behind the song's intricate instrumentation. He played multiple guitars, including the lead electric guitar on Foreplay, which he ran through a space pedal effect to create that signature futuristic sound. Now, for a long time, he laid down the acoustic rhythm guitars, but when it came to the fiery electric solos in that, those were left in the capable hands of Barry Goodrow, who delivered 3 electrifying leads. I love this song. Soon enough, some of the songs made their way to a few record labels, and the reactions were coming in. Tom said, I'd sent out a portion of that demo, and suddenly I got interest from 3 major labels, RCA, A&M Records, and possibly Columbia, but not Epic. Epic, in fact, had sent back a brutally dismissive rejection letter from an A&R executive who wrote, "This band has absolutely nothing new to offer." Tom couldn't help but laugh at the irony when years later that same guy claimed that he had discovered Boston. But at the time, there was still no deal. Tom had 2 more songs to finish, ones that weren't quite ready yet as well. So he went back to work. He completed the tracks and pulled together a 6-song demo. Within weeks, Epic, the same label that had initially shut him down, they came back with an offer. And this time, it was a good one. Long Time was the follow-up to More Than a Feeling, Boston's second single from the great album. Single ascended to number 39 in Germany, number 9 in Canada, and number 22 here on the Billboard Hot 100. Coming in at number 3 on our countdown of the top 10 songs of 77, it's a ballad. that is regarded as one of the finest love songs ever written by one of the most prolific lyricists ever. The song was actually released clear back in 1970, but 7 years later, the live version was the hit. At number 3, I got Maybe I'm Amazed by Paul McCartney.
Maybe I'm amazed at the way you love me all the time.
Now, Maybe I'm Amazed wasn't just a love song. It was a thank you, a tribute to the woman who had saved Paul McCartney when he needed it most. Paul poured his heart into Maybe I'm Amazed, a song written for the love of his life, Linda. She, of course, was his rock, his constant. When she passed away from breast cancer in '98, the world lost not just an icon, but the woman who had been Paul's greatest source of strength. He wrote this song in 1969, just as the Beatles were falling apart. The breakup left him adrift, uncertain of what would come next. But Linda was there, steady and unwavering, pulling him through the storm. Paul never wanted to be apart from her, not even on the road. I think they spent like 1 or 2 nights away from each other in their whole marriage.
Maybe I'm amazed at the way I really need you.
She was always on the journey with Paul, no matter what. Paul McCartney was a one-man band on this song, handling everything in the original recording anyway. Guitars, bass, piano, organ, and the drums. Actually, if you listen closely, about 44 seconds in, you can hear the sound of his drumsticks accidentally clicking together. That tiny imperfection was actually scrubbed out of the 2011 McCartney reissue, so that's gone.
I really need you.
Though he chose not to release the song as a single in '70, it didn't matter. Radio stations around the world picked this thing up. They gave it heavy airplay. They loved the song.
Something that he doesn't really understand.
To promote the song, a short film was created, a montage of photographs featuring McCartney, his wife Linda, stepdaughter Heather, and baby daughter Mary. On April 19, 1970, British viewers caught it on ITV, aired it in a dedicated slot. American audiences saw it too. It was broadcast as part of the Ed Sullivan Show on CBS. And even without a formal single release, McCartney's song found its way into the hearts of fans everywhere. So the live version with a slower tempo, that became a single from the 1976 album Wings Over America by McCartney's band Wings in February '77. It reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 28 in the UK. What a song. My dad's favorite song of all time. The runner-up on our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1977, The Bridesmaid. It's Rock Magnificence by one of the best-selling acts of all time. One that I know is going to cause gasps and annoyance that it didn't make it to number 1. Coming in at number 2, it's Eagles with a lifetime reservation, Hotel California.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Direct from Don Henley, who wrote the song with the late Glenn Frey, Hotel California is about the dark underbelly of the American dream. Of course, Don Felder wrote the music. As Midwesterners, Don and Glenn viewed California as a paradise, the ultimate place to be if you're going to make it in the music business.
Such a lovely place, such a lovely place.
Hotel California, that was their interpretation of living the high life. Hotel California has one of my favorite lines from a song ever. In the final verse, when Don delivers the sinister reality, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
I mean, that line sounds like something out of classic TV sci-fi drama like Twilight Zone, which is what Glenn Frey once compared Hotel California to, and how it jumps from one bizarre scene to another without making sense.
You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
According to Glenn Frey, the song's success comes from the way listeners fill in the blanks themselves, creating their own stories from the vivid images in the lyrics. If any of us were contestants on, Shazam or Name That Tune, we would get Hotel California in one note. That's how iconic it is. Don Felder's guitar riff on the track is one of the most recognizable of the rock era. Felder was sitting on the beach, guitar in hand, and inspiration struck. As he played, a haunting progression took shape, one that would eventually become the foundation for Hotel California. He recorded a rough demo, complete with the basic guitar tracks, and later played it for Don Henley and Glenn Frey. When they heard it, they were very intrigued, to say the very least. Two of them helped shape it into the song we know today, with Henley taking the lead on the lyrics, of course. Fast forward about a year to the recording session, and Felder, he found himself in a bit of a predicament. As they laid down the track, he started improvising on the outro, adding his own flair to it. But Henley, he didn't like it. He stopped Felder mid-play and insisted that he replicate the demo note for note. But there was only one problem. Don Felder didn't remember exactly what he'd played. So in a scramble, he had to call his wife and have her dig up the original cassette demo and play it for him over the phone. This is before cell phones, so he could nail down the part exactly as it was first conceived. Hotel California with Don Felder and Joe Walsh trading guitar solos was a smash for the Eagles. The best duo solo ever. Broke the top 10 in most countries around the world, including the UK at number 8, France at number 2. The single that extended well past 6 minutes also shot to number 1 in Canada and here on the Billboard Hot 100. Of course it did. Now the time has come to culminate our countdown of the top 10 songs of 77. And the song that reigns supreme is one that was the first crossover hit for a band that was arguably the most successful prog rock band to originate in America. The number 1 song on the POR countdown of the top 10 songs of 77 that actually beat Hotel California is Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas.
Carry on my wayward son.
And the story of Carry On Wayward Son is an interesting one. It was the last song the band recorded while they were in their hometown of Topeka, Kansas, finishing the Left Overture album. It was co-founder Kerry Livgren who presented the song as the guys were packing up to leave the studio.
Once I rose above the noise and confusion.
With the single greatest opening for a song ever, here are the details from Rich Williams, the only member of Kansas that has been with the band from the very beginning. Love this.
All the rehearsals were quite good. We'd pretty much had the album done. We had some stuff in the can. This is the last day of rehearsal, kind of refresh, go through this stuff. Then we're going to head to Bogalusa, Louisiana to record. Carrie, I got one more song. And I can still hear the groans, like, oh, we don't want. We've learned enough. We've got more of the albums, more songs that we're going to record, and he's start playing Wayward Son. So, well, wow, this could be a cool song, but we didn't really learn it at all. It wasn't until we got into the studio, and in the studio, we don't just set up and do a song. It's a production line of stuff. You're getting basic tracks, you're getting drum sounds, and you lay down all these tracks, and you start adding keyboards and other things. So you're going from song to song. So as we're getting basic tracks done, it's kind of, we need to probably get that other song, the new song. And so that was learned basically with the tape rolling. So the version on there is probably the first time we did it right.
Carry On Wayward Son is truly a rock classic. It's a pinnacle accomplishment for Kerry Livgren as a lyricist, Steve Walsh as a vocalist, and the entire band for their incredible musicianship.
Don't you cry no more.
The opening, it makes the hair on your neck stand up every time. And the single peaked at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100 and moved all the way to number 5 in Canada. Man, what a song.
Don't you cry no more.
And that completes our countdown of the top 10 songs of 77. I got 3 honorable mentions for you, though. Easy by the Commodores, I Wish by Stevie Wonder, and Rich Girl by Daryl Hall and John Oates.
I'm easy like Sunday morning. Rich girl, and you're gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. What do you think about my number 1 and number 2? Would you have picked Carry On Wayward Son over Hotel California? I'm sorry, but I would. Kansas, it's just one of the great, probably top 5 greatest rock songs ever in my book. But then again, Hotel California's there as well. Let us know your picks. What is your favorite of the 77? What are your top 10 songs, your top albums? Let's have a great discussion and remember this incredible year. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.